Welcome to the 18th annual Poetry on the Patio. We move this around the house, so to speak, from year to year based on the weather. I always think of the patio as the front porch of the library, and then we've had it in the leather room, which I think of as the living room of the library. And this is the sacred space. Most of our houses don't have churches as part of them, but the library does. So, as you know, April is National Poetry Month, so we schedule this reading at the very end of the month to maximize the possibility of us doing it outside. And this is only about the fourth or fifth time that we've been driven inside by cold weather and rain and so forth. So, but I'm really glad you made it. And I think this is an awesome space to do this. We began this event in 1999 as a way of sharing the favorite poems of people in the community. We've asked people to get up and read them out loud. Julie spends much of the year recruiting readers. It's a hard job she does. And is that coming from here? Okay. I don't know. Maybe it is. It's coming from me. It's coming from my head. Maybe I'm the only one that hears it. So over the years we've had, I've said we've had over 170 readers, but then Mike said he's read 3 times, so it's about 167 different people. I don't know how he did that.
Well, Pam says we have to just turn this down.
Thank you. Thanks, Julie. So a couple of days ago, it was actually the day Prince died. It was such a weird day for me, but there was a moment where a close colleague, a friend I worked with for a long time, not a literary, scholarly person on campus, that's not his role, but he came up to my office to talk to me, and he noticed I had a book of Yeats poetry. I have it actually face out on my bookshelf because I love Yeats. Yeats and I were born on the same day, not the same year. He's been dead for a long time, but So my friend said, Yeats, I love Yeats. And I was so surprised to hear this guy say, I love Yeats. Turns out he had studied in Ireland. He knew Yeats's poetry really well. So to me, it was just an indication that people, you can't tell, but people really do have favorite poems and favorite poets. We even have it. We have a guest, a late addition to the reading list today. I can't wait to hear what this guy has to read. But I'm surprised and delighted that he's here too. So, point being, we believe people do have favorite poems, and reading them out loud is a kind of an important thing to do. So, before we start, I'm going to read something from the poet Edward Hirsch, who I've quoted, I think, before, because he talks a lot about the importance of poetry and reading poetry. And he wrote this for the Poetry Foundation. I once suggested that a friend and I compile and read some of our favorite short poems. It would be an event for National Poetry Month. He is a great proponent of reading poems aloud, so he would stand up and recite them from the podium. Meanwhile, I would sit on a chair hidden in the corner and read them silently to myself. I was kidding about the event, but half serious about the idea. Much can be said for performing poems aloud, using our bodies as their instruments, but an equal amount can be said for keeping them to ourselves. Reading is contact. What we read can be shockingly personal because it so deeply activates our inner lives, the daydreaming capacity of the mind. Reading poetry has helped deliver me to myself. It has given me a language for experience, not just my own experience, but also the experience of others. I wouldn't recognize myself without being able to read and reread poetry. That's why I'm sure it can be so determining. Reading is both private and social. For National Poetry Month, I recommend this sustaining way of being alone with others. So that's kind of what we're doing today. The way this works, how many of you have been here before? Okay, so the way it works, everybody's got a list of the readers and the poems. What I will ask you to do is come up in order, tell us who you are, and then tell us a little bit about why the poem that you're going to read is meaningful to you. And I will start out. I've actually read 18 years in a row, Mike, so you have a way to go, bud. I'm going to read a poem by a Native American poet, Joy Harjo. I've admired her work for many years. She's a Creek Indian and a student of First Nation history, and she's really deeply rooted in the environment and nature, as well as the Native American spirit world. The name of the poem is Remember. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life, and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth, we are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind, remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember, you are all people, and all people are you. Remember, you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember, language comes from this. Remember, the dance language is, that life is. Remember. Linda.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Linda Bachman-Terry. I'm from the Dean of Students office, and very excited to be sharing poetry this afternoon. I'm going to share two poems, and the first one is by Mary Oliver, one of my go-to favorite poets. And I find a lot of my own faith through nature. So this poem is Little Summer Poem touching the subject of faith. Every summer, I listen and look under the sun's brass, and even in the moonlight, but I can't hear anything. I can't see anything. Not the pale roots digging down, nor the green stalks muscling up, nor the leaves deepening their damp pleats, nor the tassels making, nor the shucks, nor the cobs, and still, every day, the leafy fields grow taller and thicker, green gowns lofting up in the night, showered with silk. And so, every summer, I fail as a witness, seeing nothing. I am deaf to the tick of the leaves, the tapping of downwardness from the banyan feet, all of it happening beyond all seeable proof or hearable hum. And therefore, let the immeasurable come. Let the unknowable touch the buckle of my spine. Let the wind turn in the trees and the mystery hidden in dirt swing through the air. How could I look at anything in this world and tremble and grip my hands over my heart? What should I fear? One morning, in the leafy green ocean, the honeycomb of the corn's beautiful body is sure to be there. All right, so that's my Mary Oliver. And the second poem I'd like to share is another one of my favorites, Billy Collins. And it's called On Turning 10. And I will share with you, I have a son who's 11, and this poem just speaks to me so much because I have a son who I see having a difficult time letting go of his boyhood. So it'll make sense to you as we go through it. On turning 10. The whole idea of it makes me feel like I'm coming down with something worse than any stomach ache or the headaches I get from reading in bad light. A kind of measles of the spirit, a mumps of the psyche, a disfiguring chickenpox of the soul. You tell me it is too early to be looking back, But that is because you have forgotten the perfect simplicity of being one and the beautiful complexity introduced by two. But I can lie on my bed and remember every digit. At 4, I was an Arabian wizard. I could make myself invisible by drinking a glass of milk a certain way. At 7, I was a soldier. At 9, a prince. But now, I am mostly at the window watching the late afternoon light. Back then, it never fell so solemnly against the side of my treehouse, and my bicycle never leaned against the garage as it does today. All the dark blue speed drained out of it. This is the beginning of sadness, I say to myself, as I walk through the universe in my sneakers. It is time to say goodbye to my imaginary friends, time to turn the first big number. It seems only yesterday I used to believe there was nothing under my skin but light. If you cut me, I would shine. But now, if I fall upon the sidewalks of life, I skin my knees, I bleed. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to thank for being, is this better? Okay, I'd like to be thanked for thank the library committee for inviting me here. I used to sit in the library committee last semester in USG, and it was so much fun. I switched roles this year, and now I'm doing a little bit something different, so I can't participate anymore, which is kind of sad, but I'm glad to be back. So my poem is If. It's by Joseph Rudyard Kipling, who actually more famously wrote The Jungle Book, and it is a favorite poem of Ayn Rand, who was a Russian-born American novelist and the founder of Objectivism, who is by far my favorite writer. And a little bit of a backstory. So first of all, I'm a senior here. I'm from Mankato, and I'm really, really close to my family, but you know, when you're kind of away, you get that bit of disconnect in the news. And I was going back and forth between a couple different poems and could not really decide, and then last Thursday, actually, I got the news that a really close family friend had passed away. And I didn't really know he was sick, and it came out really quickly, and it went really fast. He had lung cancer, which goes to the brain very fast. And it's, you know, when you get that news, you get that immediate just, you sit down. And after the initial shock wore off, I mean, you have to be a little bit thankful that he didn't really suffer, and he lived to be 76 years old, spent 51 years with the love of his life, his wife gave birth to 3 beautiful children. He's got beautiful grandchildren that he left behind and left a really big impact on my life, my family's life. And getting that news really made me decide what I wanted to read today. So I'm going to read If by Rudyard Kipling. This night is very strange. It's weird. And obviously Rudyard Kipling lived a very long time ago, so you kind of have to adapt the poem a little bit, but it still means a lot to me. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubt too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves and make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave life to broken and stoop to build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it in one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, and walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Thank you.
I'm sneaking in ahead of somebody else, so thank you. I'm John Heinz. I work in the libraries. One of my reading interests is the age of sail, novels about the age of sail and the British Navy, American Navy, the French Navy, those kinds of things. So I have a couple of poems about ships in the sea. Of course, I live in Minnesota, so I don't see ships in the sea very often, so go figure. And I haven't read poetry aloud since college, so I don't know, that's like 3 or 4 years ago, so forgive my reading. The first one is called The Sailor Boy by Alfred Lord Tennyson. He rose at dawn and fired with hope, shot o'er the seething harbor bar, and reached the ship and caught the rope, and whistled to the morning star. And while he whistled long and loud, he heard a fierce mermaiden cry, "O boy, thou though you are young and proud, I see the place where thou wilt lie. The sands and yeasty surges mix in caves about the dreary bay, and on thy ribs the limpet sticks, and in thy heart the scrawl shall play." "Fool," he answered, "death is sure to those that stay and those that roam, but I will never more endure to sit with empty hands at home. My mother clings about my neck, my sister's crying, stay for shame. My father raves of death and wreck. They are all to blame, they are all to blame. God help me, save I take my part of danger on the roaring sea. A devil rises in my heart, far worse than any death to me." The second one is called The Secret of the Sea by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Ah, what pleasant visions haunt me as I gaze upon the sea. All the old romantic legends, all my dreams come back to me. Sails of silk and ropes of sandal, such as gleam in ancient lore, and the singing of the sailors and the answer from the shore. Most of all, the Spanish ballad haunts me oft and tarries long, of the noble Count Arnaldos and the sailor's mystic song. Like the long waves on a sea beach where the sand as silver shines, with a soft, monotonous cadence flow its unrhymed lyric lines, telling how Count Arnaldos, with his hawk upon his hand, saw a fair and stately galley steering onward to the land. How he heard the ancient helmsman chant a song so wild and clear that the sailing seabird slowly poised upon the mast to hear, till his soul was full of longing, and he cried with impulse strong, "Helmsman, for the love of heaven, teach me too that wondrous song." "Wouldst thou," so the helmsman answered, "learn the secret of the sea? Only those who brave its dangers comprehend its mystery. In each sail that skims the horizon, in each landward blowing breeze, I behold that stately galley, hear those mournful melodies, till my soul is full of longing for the secret of the sea, and the heart of the great ocean sends a thrilling pulse through me."
I was told to follow the guy in the green shirt, so I'm hoping I'm doing the right thing. My name's Carol Wilkie. I work in the advancement office at St. Thomas, and I'm really proud to be invited as a reader for this year's Poetry on the Patio. And by the way, I am picturing us outside right now. I'm a graduate of Viterbo University in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I was on Viterbo's campus recently for a special speaker they hosted. Her name was Magna Herzberger, and this spunky, vibrant, 90-year-old woman will forever be etched in my mind. Magna is one of a handful of survivors of the Holocaust. Her life's mission is to not only verbalize the horrors of these times, but also, and more importantly, to teach the simple beauty and uncompromising strength of love. Magda grew up in Romania in a happy and loving home. She tells of having wonderful parents who taught her to be compassionate, tolerant, loving, kind, and forgiving. Not unlike we teach at St. Thomas, I believe. Magna was just 19 when she and her family were transported by rail car to Auschwitz. She tells vividly and deliberately about being lined up and realizing that up ahead, the women and the children were being separated from the men. She pushed herself up close to her father. Her father also saw what she saw. Her father picked her up, held her close, and told her how much he loved her. And he told her that she must hang on to the 3 pillars of life: faith, hope, and love. Further, he made her promise to never let hatred enter her heart. Never. No matter what. She never saw her father again. Magna survived Auschwitz, and she survived 2 other concentration camps as well, Bremen and Bergen-Belsen. Her family perished. She was worked hard. She dug graves. She buried bodies. She cleaned ashes from the ovens. She says, "I lived a terrible life in a terrible environment where I was facing the danger of being killed on a daily basis, and where the principles I grew up with were non-existent. I prayed to God every day, asking my Creator to give me the strength to bear my suffering and help me survive." Magda spent 3 years in the death camps. She refuses to call them concentration camps. And she survived. She would tell you that her faith saved her. When the British liberated Bergen-Belsen, Magna had collapsed that day from her work and was lying on a pile of corpses, hours from death. One of the British soldiers driving by noticed that she was still breathing. He stopped, picked her up, and carried her away to freedom. After she was liberated, Magna got married, and she and her husband just celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary. Magna thanks God every day for her life and continues to fill her heart with love. She writes a lot of poetry, and I have picked one of her poems to read today. It is entitled simply, Prayer. Almighty God, upon you I call. Don't let evil spirits possess my soul. Don't let hatred strangle my love or despair crush my hope. Tie me with the rope of patience to the pillar of strength when anger erupts in my mind. Don't let emotion blind my reason. Teach me the psalm of faith and restore my calm. Dispel my doubts and fears while the bells of life toll my years. Let the warm rays of affection and compassion conquer my spirit. O Lord, our God, please disperse the seeds of peace and brotherhood upon the earth as time rolls on the wheels of the universe.
I'm the lady who always wears a hat with a brim because lights over my head are bothersome. So put a red cross on it. It's like a walker for your head. I retired 15 years ago. I can't believe it. It seems like yesterday. And I don't recognize many things. And a funny thing happened on the way here. I went and said, what's the quickest way to get to the Great Hall? And I said, it used to be the periodicals room. So I was sent to the sub-basement. And I said, that can't be right. And I saw somebody sitting over, and I said, hey, check this out. But the young woman didn't know that, did she? But we do have periodicals here. There are. I'm reading a little bit that I snuck in that I didn't tell I was going to do because of the recent circumstances in the world. It's an 11th century poem written in about the 10th century at the beginning of the life of the Saint Alexis. And it says, I'm reading this in medieval French, Bons fus les siècles als temps ancienur, ker faith ierith, eth justitiae eth amors. Nor hath nulle credence, ni hath nul prud. Tots est mudes, perduda hath sa couleur. Jamais nier tels confus à sensé source. And that first stanza says, gosh, this is written in 1000. Gosh, the world was really great in ancient years gone by, because in that world before, there was faith, and there was justice, and there was love. Today, alas, in 1000, there's no such thing as belief, nor is there a person of political prowess that we can admire. Everything has changed its color. Everything has changed. Never again will the world be like it was to those people who lived a long time ago. Had to slide that one in. Okay, the next poem is, oh, by the way, I told Dan and Julie, I haven't been able to come to this for 19 years because every year in spring on the same Tuesday that this happens, I'm at the University of Minnesota judging the French contest. À vous la parole. And so I'm doing poetry, but not here. So the next one is, again, I'm a medievalist, so the next one is another at the end of the medieval period. Charles d'Orléans, who was the nephew of the King of France, Charles VI, who changed the calendar and made April the 1st no longer be New Year's Day, but January 1st, and it confused the world for a lot of years. Speaking of change. And this is called a poem, and it's one that has a refrain that pops up and comes back, and it's a special little French kind of poem. And it's studied and memorized by lots of students in school. Le temps a laissé son manteau de vent, de froidure et de pluie, et s'est vêtu de broderies de soleil luisant, clair et beau. Il n'y a bête ni oiseau qu'en son jargon ne chante ou crie. Le temps a laissé son manteau. Rivières, fontaines et ruisseaux portent en livrée jolie gouttes d'argent, d'orfèvrerie. Chacun s'habille de nouveau. Le temps a laissé son manteau. Translated. The weather has taken off its winter overcoat. Wind against the wind and the cold and the rain. And it's put on embroidered, lovely, colorful clothes, which reflect the sun, which is clear and beautiful. There's not an animal nor a bird which in its own language isn't singing and screaming and yelling. The weather has taken off its winter coat. And everybody wears new clothes because the weather has taken off its winter coat. The last one is just a teensy little bit on a sadder note from a long poem called Le Lac. Where's the sea guy? Le Lac is about, this would be a Minnesota version of water. It's called A Meditation. And now we've bumped up to the 19th century. I'm giving you a little survey of French poetry. A 19th century long meditation by Alphonse de Lamartine. Le temps suspend ton vol, et vous, heure propice, suspendez votre cours. Laissez-nous savourer les rapides délices des plus beaux de nos jours, which says in English, oh, time, please stop. Stop your course. Hours that are around us. Let us please savor these bumping noises. Let us savor these rapid, delicious delicacies of the best of our beautiful days. So this is a regret of a retiree who has been retired 15 years and is out of here.
Hi, my name's Christopher Vance. I'm a senior at St. Thomas, studying philosophy. I wrote a paper for a class recently about one of Gerard Manley Hopkins' poems. Some of you may know him for poems like As Kingfishers Catch Fire. I really like his style. This is a rather obscure poem of his, but I think it's very critical to understanding who this man is. Because it was written at a very crucial time in his life. Hopkins was a Jesuit priest, and during his seminary years, he was so just inexorably drawn to beauty, particularly natural beauty, wherever he could find it, and he knew he had this passion. So he decided one day early in seminary, I'm going to renounce all beauty for the sake of God. And he didn't write any poems for 6 years, knowing that he was very talented, simply to, I guess, spend a time of silence to discover how is it that God is actually calling me to use poetry and beauty in the context of my new vocation as a Catholic priest. He was so utterly convinced that his call was to lead souls to God that he wanted nothing to stand in the way of that mission, not even his own gift of genius at poetry. I believe that the woodlark in this poem gives him the beginning of an answer to that question of what is the place of poetry in my new life. This is one of the first few poems that Hopkins wrote immediately after that 6-year period of writing nothing. And so it's very significant because it's also the first poem that's exclusively about natural beauty. It's not written in honor of some bishop or another bishop, which he wrote many at this period as he's kind of testing the waters. So what do I do? So here we go. The Woodlark. Chivo, chivo, chivio, chi. Oh, where, what can that be? Weedio, weedio, there again. So tiny a trickle of song strain. And all round not to be found. For briar, bow, furrow, or green ground. Before or behind, or far or at hand. Either left, either right, anywhere in the sunlight. Well, after all, but hark, I am the little woodlark. Today the sky is 2 and 2, with white strokes and strains of the blue. Round a ring, around a ring, and while I sail, must listen, I sing. The skylark is my cousin, and he is known to men more than me. When the cry within says, go on, then I go on, till the longing is less and the good gone. But down drop, if it says stop, to the all-a-leaf of the treetop. And after that, off the bough. I am so very, oh, so very glad that I do think there is not to be had. The blue wheat acre is underneath, and the corn is corded and shoulders its sheaf. The ear and milk lush the sash, and crushed silk poppies a flash. The blood gush, blade gash, flame rash, rud red, bud shelling or broad shed, tatter tangled and dangle a dangled, dandy hung, dainty head. And down the furrow dry, sun spurge and ox eye, and lace-leaved lovely, foam tuft, fumitory, through the velvety wind, V-winged. To the nest's nook I balance and buoy, with a sweet joy of a sweet joy, sweet of a sweet of a sweet joy, of a sweet joy. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kristy Ames. I'm the office manager from University Relations. I've been with the university for a couple of years, and one of the first tasks that I was charged with was to clean the basement of the historic Loris Hall on South Campus. And Approximately 24 hours after receiving the invitation to join Poetry on the Patio, I was in said basement and looking for a print, and out fell a little sheet of paper. I hadn't responded to Julie's invitation at the time, but when I read the small paper, which is the poem I'll read today, one of them, it's called Blue and Rising, I took it as a sign that I must read today. Blue and Rising was written by Kevin Crosley Holland, who was the endowed chair for St. Thomas for Humanities and Fine Arts Department from 1991 to 1995. And story has it that he would travel the area, and at the drop of a hat, he would sit and write these poems. So, thank you for inviting me, and here's Blue and Rising by Kevin Crosley Holland. White dust in my nostrils, my throat. The track's a ribbon tossed over the hill's back, and then it lollops back into a thicket. The only way into this seasoned log cabin, sprig of rosemary on my pillow, acres of silence commaed by birds, and now is the only place to begin. Your last words, the green man says, some were right, some wrong. Bluebird? Never, and you knew it. A false note for the song's sake. He strokes his Minnesotan beard, and knowing is not understanding. To understand, still not to grasp what gives a rising poem blue wings. The second poem I'd like to share with you is Tired by Shel Silverstein from his book, A Light in the Attic. And it is my tip of the cap to all Minnesotans who appreciate the arrival of spring. Tired. I have been working so hard you just wouldn't believe, and I'm tired. There's so little time and so much to achieve, and I'm tired. I have been lying here holding the grass in its place, pressing a leaf with the side of my face, tasting the apples to see if they're sweet, counting the toes on the centipede's feet. I've been memorizing the shape of that cloud and warning the robins, don't chirp so loud. Shooing the butterflies off the tomatoes, keeping an eye out for floods and tornadoes. I've been supervising the work of the ants and thinking of pruning the cantaloupe plants. Timing the sun to see what time it will set, calling the fish to swim into my net. I've taken 12,041 breaths, and I'm tired.
Hello, I'm Sierra. I'm a senior in the Justice and Peace Studies Department. And the poem I'm sharing with you today, I was introduced to while I was studying abroad, and it just provided one of those eye-opening, I need this perspective moments, and so I hope you enjoy it. It's called The Moment by Margaret Atwood. The moment when, after many years of hard work and a long voyage, you stand in the center of your room, house, half-acre, square mile, island, country, knowing at last how you got there, and say, I own this. It's the same moment when the trees unloose their soft arms from around you, and the birds take back their language, and the cliffs fissure and collapse. The air moves back from you like a wave, and you can't breathe. No, they whisper, you own nothing. You were a visitor, time after time, climbing the hill, planting the flag, proclaiming, we never belonged to you, you never found us. It was always the other way around. Thank you.
Okay. I'm a lot shorter. Is that okay? Okay. So I'll try and be brief. I am reading Phenomenal Woman by Maya Angelou. I went to school and grew up in Spirit Lake, Iowa, which is a really small town. I was the only person of color in my school, and we had this program called Accelerated Reader that tested your reading levels, and then you had to read books and take tests to get points, but you had to read within your range. And in middle school, my reading level didn't allow me to read any books that were in the middle school library. So I started working with one of the English teachers in the high school to get books from the library that she thought maybe I'd be interested in. And in 8th grade, she shared with me I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And that book, I think, changed me. It was the first time I had read anything or felt connected to anyone who shared my experience and who could understand how I felt about a lot of things in life. So I asked, how do I get in contact with her to let her know that she changed me? And my teacher helped me write a letter to Maya Angelou, and I actually got a response back. So anyway, I know that I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings gets read often, and it's probably one of the most talked about, but I thought maybe I would read Phenomenal Woman. It's a poem that I would love to embody and live up to. Pretty women wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model's size. But when I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say it's the fire in my eyes and the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist and the joy in my feet. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you feel proud. I say it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. 'Cause I'm a woman phenomenally. Phenomenal woman. That's me. Thank you.
You are a phenomenal woman, Jessica. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. So the magic of Poetry on the Patio is, as you know, we don't tell people what to read. We don't say there's going to be a theme. We don't say, tell us what you want to read. We'll tell you if it's okay or not. We don't do any of that. This is a potluck. I never know until pretty much the day that it comes what's going to happen. And yet it's always this beautiful, sometimes interconnected series of poems, you know. So today it seemed like there was a lot of spring and nature and women and so forth. So really great. Thank you so much. There's cookies and beverages. I really appreciate you all read just absolutely beautifully. So I couldn't be more happy, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day.